Hello everyone, and welcome to the Week 5 announcements for History 370. So one thing I need to talk about first of all is the upcoming schedule. So Week 3, 4, and 5 are very similar in that it's basically just straight class. And then you've got a quiz and a writing assignment due, or a midterm in the case of Week 3 due at 11:59 p.m. Sunday. The upcoming week, not this week, but next week, Week 6, is the last week of the course. And remember, this class mirrors an in-person course, so there's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of class. So we have the equivalent of 3 days of class lectures and documentaries. And then Thursday is the final exam, right? The university is the one that determines that. Thursday is the final exam. So remember that, right? You're used to having like a full week to do everything, and then you've got 11:59 p.m. Sunday, all that stuff's due. This week, that's how it is. Week 5, it's that way. Week 6, it is not that way. Week 6, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, boom, final exam on Thursday. So do please keep that in mind. The final exam, Week 6 final exam, will be cumulative. And so it's going to include material from weeks 1 through 6. What I've done in the Week 6 folder, though, is I've put up 2 terms lists. One is organized by when those terms were presented, and the other is organized alphabetically, and I have removed some terms, right? They're not all there, but the final exam, it is cumulative. It will focus on those terms, and so it would be very good to have them available. One reason I put them up in alphabetical order is you could theoretically go and copy and paste from your study guides into that alphabetical list. That's a good way of kind of reviewing. And then they're in alphabetical order. You've got them and can easily find them when you take the open note final exam. So just keep that in mind. So a couple things on the writing assignments. I was generally happy with them. One thing that some people struggled with the Madman's Diary, the reason Lu Xun was so concerned with children is that the children were the future of the nation, right? He's concerned that China is going to be destroyed. His generation is not necessarily doing the best job. So his hope is that the children can be saved from this taint of cannibalism. And the significance, the meaning of cannibalism was it was basically saying, we Chinese people are hypocrites. We say we believe in virtue. We say we believe in benevolence. But really, we just eat each other. And he doesn't mean we literally eat each other, though it sometimes does happen in Chinese history. But what he means is we oppress each other. We're cruel to each other. We need to stop that, right? We need to reform who we are, especially for the sake of our children. And then they will be the ones that will ultimately be the future of China. And if our children can be saved, then China can be saved. That's kind of the idea. And what's interesting, I think, is Lu Xun is really engaging in an internal critique of China and Chinese culture. Now, the comfort women section, that was very uncomfortable, I think, and I understand that. And I was pretty easygoing in my grading with that because I know it's not a lot of fun. There was a couple things I wanted people to really get. One was how this was really official, in a sense, right? This was organized, right? The guys waited in line for their turn, right? And someone supplying the women with contraceptives, right? So this is something that was really organized. And this is important because sometimes, there'll be this attempt to say, well, this was just some people just doing stuff. It's like, no. The Japanese government was behind this, right? This was organized. And you can also see the problem in that there were Koreans who collaborated, who worked with this, who acted as agents. They were more likely, of course, to win the trust of other Koreans than the Japanese did. And how much those agents knew is not always clear. Some may have thought that, honestly, they were recruiting for a factory. Others probably knew what was really going on. But in any case, there were Koreans who cooperated in this. And this is important for us to understand the kind of divisions that exist after Japan leaves. Or is kicked out of Korea, right? Because there's the Koreans who have worked with the Japanese to do stuff like this, and other Koreans are not too happy with them. And of course, those Koreans who did these kinds of things wants to protect their positions, don't want to be punished for their actions. So it really creates a lot of conflict later on. The new writing assignment, I want people to kind of, a large part of this class is kind of comparative. And so there's speeches that are, there's excerpts from speeches, one by Kim Il-sung, the leader of North Korea, and one from Park Chung-hee, a leader of South Korea. And that just, I want you to kind of compare and contrast those. And it's basically what we've been doing the whole time. Quiz grades, I was reasonably happy with. There were a lot of good ones. Some people went down. And this is, you just want to kind of think, okay, what happened with my quiz? Why didn't I do well? What can I do to do better? Right? And I really have to stress the next 10 days or so are really going to make a difference for how you do in this class, right? So if you're finding like, well, like if you're not filling out the study guides, one thing to do to improve your grade, fill that out, study it, do it early. If you say, well, I don't have time to do that, you need to make the time. If you can't make the time, you should think about dropping the class if you're failing or have a very low grade. And I have posted the grades, the post-quiz 4 grade you can find up on Blackboard. It gives you the letter grade. If you have any question about that grade, I'm happy to remind you, or I'm happy to talk to you about that. Do keep in mind that the week 5 bonus opportunity is still open. And that will be open till Friday, 11:59 p.m. That's uploading the study guide by Friday, 11:59 p.m. So keep that in mind. Now, I do want to note that there is kind of a shift in the way that we're doing the video lectures for this week. There's actually quite a few documentaries that you'll be watching. 4 of them come from the Pacific Century series. These are Reinventing Japan, which is about the American occupation of Japan. The other is called Inside Japan, Inc., which is about how Japan was able to go from a country devastated by World War II, wasn't even particularly wealthy before World War II, to the 3rd largest economy in the world. I believe at that time it had actually gone up to the 2nd largest economy. It became 2nd after the Soviet Union fell. The 3rd is Big Business and the Ghost of Confucius, and this is looking at economic development in South Korea, Singapore, and Taiwan in particular, and talk about how they're trying to develop. The last one, The Fight for Democracy, is about democratization in South Korea. Now, there are several reasons I want to include so many documentaries, and a large part is because they give us really a feeling for what's going on. They give us the atmosphere. They're actually going to interview people who took part in these events. And this is an older series, so you can tell the production values aren't as good. This was made in the 90s. Sometimes it's a bit cheesy. But one thing I really have to emphasize about this is that it does allow for people who actually participate in these interviews or participated in these events to be interviewed. And I think that makes a big difference, right? I think it's fascinating to hear what a prime minister of Japan has to say about all this. One thing that's fascinating in Reinventing Japan is that the current Constitution of the United States was written by Americans, and the Americans were like in their 20s, and they interview them, and they ask them about, what it was like making this Constitution. And it's really funny because this one guy describes what they did. It shows pictures of him goofing off, just kind of playing around when he was in his 20s, so it's hilarious. And, that's just something I can't give you in a lecture, so that's why we have so many documentaries. One thing I want to highlight in The Fight for Democracy, they will interview someone named Dr. Michael Robinson. He was my master's advisor when I was, and my honors advisor when I was an undergraduate at Indiana University. So that was, that's a special thing for me in that particular documentary. But I think that you will hopefully get a lot out of those documentaries. I think they're very interesting. I would have liked to have shown more earlier, but they don't exist. And that's the problem is, one thing about this is that people just don't make documentaries like this, or they don't make them about older periods because there's not as much footage and the people are dead and can't be interviewed. It's unfortunate. Now, there's one other documentary from what's a series called People's Century, which was an old BBC documentary. It's also a little bit cheesy because it was made in the 90s, but it's awesome because what they do in People's Century is they look at how big events impacted the lives of everyday people. So one thing that you want to focus on as you watch this is I will ask you to remember the names of specific people in this and other documentaries. I've got a list of names you should know. I've got questions about them. So you want to take careful notes so you're not surprised on the test or on the quiz when it's like, whoa, where are all these names coming from? They're on the list. So just keep that in mind. That it's going to have some kind of average everyday people in here. Now, one thing, last time I gave kind of a warning because of some graphic content, the kind of domestic abuse that happened in the House of Bamboo clip. One student actually emailed me to thank me for that. So it tells me that, hey, I need to make sure to always mention such things. In this People's Centuries documentary, it's about the Great Leap Forward in China. It's a very good documentary. At the 23-minute mark, there is, for about 30 seconds, some child nudity, if that's something that makes you uncomfortable. It's at the 23-minute mark, so just once you get to like 22:50, skip ahead to like 24, and you'll easily skip it. I'm going to explain now what that was there for. So during the Great Leap Forward, the government of China, in the name of control and efficiency, basically wanted to replace families. They wanted to take a lot of the things we do as families and do them in larger groups to theoretically make them more efficient, because you could have like economies of scale. So, for example, one thing they wanted to do was, they would say, well, this is inefficient. Why do we have all these people, each family cooking their own food? Wouldn't it be more efficient if we just had a large cafeteria, right? That would be cheaper and more efficient. So let's do that. And one thing they do to kind of illustrate that is they have all these people together bathing their children in like a communal bathroom. And that's why you've got this brief moment of child nudity, because and the idea that this is in the documentary is they're trying to show how this, they're instead of, each person just as a family bathing their kids, they're doing it as a big group. So that's just, so now I've explained it. So if you're uncomfortable with that, you can skip it and you'll still be fine for any questions I might ask, as long as you watch the rest of it. So just keep that in mind. But like I say, I like these documentaries because they give a sense of the atmosphere. They give a particular feeling for the historical time period that I can't give you just by telling you. And like I said, it's just fascinating to hear these people talk about their lives and how it impacted them. So the upcoming quiz is just your standard 30 question quiz, 3 points each. The password, don't forget it's due by Tuesday at 11:59 p.m., is Dr. Robinson, in honor of Dr. Michael Robinson, who is the one who trained me initially in my undergraduate and master's. So if you've got any criticisms, actually that's because of me, but anything good you can trace to him and Dr. Donald Baker and Dr. George Ellison and Dr. George Wilson. So and all the other professors who helped me on the way. So with all that said, password by 11:59 p.m. Tuesday. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. Good luck.